John, I think we've, in many ways, and not just you and I'm talking about everybody, we've kind of turned a corner or turned a page. It feels like something's going on, doesn't it? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing? You look great. Looks like you're all
Thank you.
cleaned up, like maybe you've
I
been to the
had a
barber shop
haircut.
or something like that. There
Yeah, I
you
had
go.
a haircut earlier today, but we've got so much going on. You have become a national celebrity, soon to be a
No,
household name.
yeah, I don't
Well,
think
you're
so. No, no.
mentioned by Eli Crane in Congress. And I think it's a pretty big deal that we've got to talk about. Where do you want to begin today?
Yeah, well, no, I definitely think it's a big deal. This kind of started a couple weeks ago when these guys were on with Dan Bongino, right? And he brought it up on the Dan Bongino show, and somebody off camera knocked over a
It
cart,
started before that.
right? It did well.
Before that. You
Yeah,
noticed that. That was so astute of you. But it started
I,
well
I
before
hear
that.
crash. I'm like, what the hell was that?
I think that was
But
Corey Mills.
no, 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 no. I think it was off screen. I don't think it was Corey. But I think that was really kind of the first time that anybody mentioned John Cullen, let alone a congressman, on a platform the size of Dan Bongino. I think. I mean, I don't think Eli mentioned it before that on another similar platform. So if you want, I mean, no, no, no. Let's play this. We'll play this with the patrons. When we go to the patron only portion, we'll play that little clip on Dan Bongino because that's from Rumble, and the YouTube guys will get upset they were playing a Rumble clip or something. So we don't want to do that. So when we go to the patron only portion of the show, we'll share that with the audience and we'll show them that. We also have the congressional testimony. So the net of this is yesterday there was a 3 hour long hearing in Congress, and I think it's Congressman, is it Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania, who's the chairman of this committee, and
Uh-huh.
this is the committee that's investigating the assassination attempt,
Allegedly.
the alleged assassination attempt
No, no,
in
allegedly investigating the
allegedly
assassination attempt.
the alleged assassination attempt that took place allegedly in Butler, PA, where there allegedly was or was not any drones flying that day.
No, I'm saying they are alleging that
No,
they
I
are
understand.
investigating.
I
I
understand.
wonder.
Yeah, we'll say. No, I thought actually the chairman did a very nice job. I mean, again, he's from Pennsylvania. He's got skin in the game. He's tied to this emotionally, and I think he did a pretty good job at this. But 3 hours into it, Clay Higgins took one hell of a maneuver, and I've got that queued up. We might actually be able to play that because that's C-SPAN. So this is Clay Higgins, and we'll take a look at that in a minute because Clay Higgins talked about something that we spoke about on this show 3 weeks ago. So why don't we go to the PDF file, and I'll show the audience what I'm talking about to kind of queue up this Clay Higgins clip. So a couple weeks ago, we looked at the stock of the rifle from the kid on the roof that got shot and killed, right? So we got a supposed assassin on the roof, takes a bunch of shots apparently, counter snipers shoot back, and we've got this kid on the roof. All right, let's open up the deck first. Let's go to the PDF, and I want to show everybody one or two slides from 3 weeks ago that we were talking about. And I think somebody on Clay Higgins' staff must have showed this to him and shared it with him, and he kind of took the ball and ran with it. We'll take a look. But we spoke about this notion that we've got 8 shots fired by the bad guy or bad guys, depending on, if you think there's more than one shooter. But we hear 8 shots, bang, 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 bang. And then that 9th shot, they've told us, was a police officer. What was it? A butler guy, and it was Zaraponi, right? Zaraponi was the guy who took the shot back. Is that right? Is that
Standing in the field. I don't know about that. I haven't seen
okay?
that name.
Okay. Higgins, I think, shares that name. So Clay Higgins. We'll see that in a minute. So we were looking at this, and we said, so wait a second. One round hits the railing. One round clips Trump's ear. 2 rounds end up in Copenhagen. 2 rounds end up hitting David Dutch. 1 round hits and kills Corey Comparatori. We see a line, the hydraulic line gets hit. Now, is the hydraulic line getting hit by a round that already hit somebody else? I don't know. Right? We don't know that yet. But we also know that the Pittsburgh Motorcycle Police team, at least one guy went to the hospital.
Right.
Said 4 of them were injured by shrapnel, they said. But one guy went to the hospital. All right, so we kind of put that on the shelf. And then we've talked about this lady who got hit in the hand or the forearm. Right. The chairman of the committee witnessed that. Whoa. Mike Kelly.
Holy crap, how come we don't know that lady's name?
Yeah, well, so again, that's why this moment that took place yesterday is kind of watershed, because the chairman witnessed the woman who got shot in the hand. He was there. Mike Kelly was there.
Wasn't he? I might have missed that part, because I was like, these guys are just going on and on about crooks. I sort of lost interest in some of it. But why didn't he say, who is that woman and where is she?
We haven't, because nobody's asking those tough questions. Right now, he's surrounded by a bunch of, this is the tea and crumpet crowd, the 4 p.m. crowd, from Georgetown. So, meet me for tea and crumpets, What are you going to do? Thank God they let these guys come and testify, right? They didn't have to do that, right? Corey Mills, Eli Crane were allowed to come and testify towards the end of the session. And one of the congresswomen, her name is Laurel Lee, said to them, what do we need to do that we're not doing? Who do we need to talk to that we haven't talked to? What do we need to look at that we haven't seen? And that's where it gets interesting. But let's go to this next slide, because we've talked about the 8 rounds and everything, but 3 weeks ago, specifically on the show, particularly with our patrons, I had the stock of the rifle here, right? I was showing people how you hold the stock, where the stock is compared to your neck, where it is compared to your face. And the question was, if this guy from Butler shot at the kid and hit the stock, as they were telling us, wouldn't it have kind of blown his right cheek off or entered his clavicle? Or, the guy would have a gunshot wound either here on his face or here in the clavicle area. And there was not a second gunshot wound on the kid. There was
now you're talking about evidence, though. This is Congress. We don't want evidence.
Well, but that's interesting, because it's exactly where Clay Higgins takes it. And, people have a lot of opinions about Clay Higgins. He's the kind of guy that I think brings out opinions in people. But man, does he do a masterful job. We're going to take a look at it in just a second. Let's take a look at one more slide here, because we were saying, so wait a second. If the Butler cop shot the kid on the roof and hit the stock of the gun, wouldn't the kid have a gunshot wound here in the clavicle, or it would have kind of blown his right cheek off or something?
Plastic or whatever that thing is made of. You cuts all over him.
Yeah, I had the stock, right? I had the stock. Here's the stock, and we were putting this up on my shoulder and looking at where it goes. And if it was hit and you're here on it, you wouldn't have much of a cheek left, right? So Clay Higgins, either he was watching or somebody on his staff was watching when we went through this. Let's play the Clay Higgins video, and I want you guys to listen really carefully. He's talking to the physician who did the autopsy. Okay? This is the physician who did the autopsy.
During the interviews with the Secret Service and FBI, they commonly step over shot number 9. They say Crooks fired 8 rounds, and then the Secret Service fired the killing shot number 10. But there was a shot number 9 fired, was there not, Mr. Lenz?
There was.
Okay, Commander, I'm gonna quote from transcribed interview of Aaron Zalapone. That's a tactical SWAT officer under your command that took shot number 9. So my final question, if I may.
What do we got?
Aaron Zaraponi?
I haven't heard that name before this. Yeah, I heard him say it yesterday. That's where only time I've heard it. I was like, I didn't see that in the list of all the unredacted. Maybe he's state police or something. Do we know? Because they had a lot of state police there who were answering the question saying, well, we don't know any more than what's been in the news, right?
We've already got the report that it was a Butler EAS that raised his rifle. You have the unredacted docs.
But what's EAS? ESU?
Murder, yeah, what is the SWAT team? Guy
Beaver
in camo.
ESU. I have the Beaver ESU stuff. That's the thing. I don't know who this guy was that he's talking about.
Well, again, we have articles that we've referenced before in earlier shows that have, like CNN or whoever, said that it was either Butler or Beaver guy raises his rifle, who was standing out there. And remember, we watched the video footage from the plumber guy, Jeff Ostroff, that isolated it.
Yeah, and he's like thinking that he's applauding or something, and he doesn't move.
Well, he raises the rifle,
right,
and he looks through the scope, and I said,
happens.
"There's no recoil. He's not taking a shot. He's looking through."
Right.
I could do the same thing. I got my gun with the scope. You pick it up and you look at.
Someone's using it like binoculars or something just to see.
It's like you look at it. You look at the moon. If you want, you zoom in on the moon. Look at the moon with it. Yeah. Well, don't shoot the moon, but you can look at it.
Aim for the stars and hit the moon.
Right, with the scope. So the cop raises his rifle. He's looking through the scope. He sees the perp on the roof, and he raises his fist because he sees the kid get popped in the head or whatever. He doesn't take a shot. We don't see his shoulder receive any recoil from the rifle. He's not firing. And we said that in the show. I said, if he did take a shot, he would have blown the kid's right cheek off or would have entered the clavicle. And the autopsy would have shown 2 wounds. And when they lifted the kid up for the photo, we would have seen this massive, entry wound here.
None of that.
We don't have any of that. So that's kind of the point here. Now, Clay Higgins takes it. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody in Congress do anything quite this pointed. Let's keep going.
I really do enjoy him. He's got a Louisiana cop thing going because that's what he was. But he's almost like the toughest. If you've been to Louisiana, you don't want to get stopped on the road by this dude.
But now he's working like a prosecutor. Listen how he handles. Dude, this is such a setup.
To the doctor. You stated, sir, and I know you're doing your best. You performed the autopsy. I've observed your work. I think it was very professional work, in my opinion. You stated that there was only 1 bullet wound. I accept that you had only 1 observable bullet wound. Are you there, doctor?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. Could the injuries on Crooks' shoulders have been caused by a combined impact of Butler County ESU shot number 9, striking somewhere in the vicinity of the buttstock of Crooks' rifle, and some fragmenting from that impact? Could the injuries on Crooks' shoulders have been caused by a combination of shot number 9 and shot number 10? Is that possible?
The body, there was no evidence on the body of that occurrence.
There you go, sir. That's different than impossible.
What you know about rolling down?
All right, so what that means is...
Yeah, help people understand that.
All right, so what we may want to do with the patrons is we're going to go to this full segment because he takes the full 5 minutes. And what he does is he sets up the Butler cop and says, so your guy took the shot, you're the guy in command and all this kind of stuff. And then he turns to the doctor and he's like, there's no evidence that anybody shot the kid? Dude, that's perjury.
But I was confused by what he said about not impossible. It was difficult to... He was
because I had to edit it for Twitter because it's only 2 minutes, right? That's what I mean. When we go to the patron only portion, we should cue this up. We'll cue it up on YouTube.
We'll watch it.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour thing. It's right at the end. He's towards the end of it. And when he brings this up, he goes through the full 5 minutes. I didn't want to do a full 5 minutes on YouTube. But what he does is he sets up the cops and your guy took the shot. This is the 9th shot. Okay, and he hits the stock of the gun and da. And then he calls up the doctor and he says, so Doc, you're there on Zoom, right? Hey, Doc, you did the autopsy, right?
Yeah, are you listening?
Did the kid get shot in the face? Is there
evidence.
a second bullet wound? Did he get hit in the clavicle? Nah. No, don't know what you're talking about. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Well, that
I
part
don't-
I got, that he's trying to say that he wasn't shot, but the confusing thing was where he said that's different than impossible. And we will get into that
Because-
in the patron thing. Or,
Yeah,
well, tell us.
I'll explain. Yeah, I'll explain it quickly. With the doctor, first the doctor says, well, it's highly unlikely. And then Clay Higgins says, highly unlikely or impossible? And he says, well, it's impossible. And then he says, well, is it impossible? Why is it impossible? And he says, well, it's kind of impossible because there's no evidence of that. And he goes, oh, well, that's different from impossible. And so he has to step the guy through all the stages for the guy to finally say, yeah, no, there's no evidence that the guy got shot on that side of the body. And Clay Higgins said, again, I'm limited to 2 minutes and 20 seconds on my Twitter video, so I've got to cut stuff up in order to fit it in there. That's kind of a summary. We'll watch the full 5 minutes. He takes the 5 minutes, and it only takes 5 minutes, but here on YouTube, that would take too long. But I think it was very, very powerful what he did.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the document that I sent you, the deck, and let's kind of take a closer look now. So again, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about, next slide, the Butler County coroner.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And how the Butler County coroner was William Young, maybe related to Patrick Young. We don't know.
Oh, well, but not only that, the wife of Gian Vito, her maiden name is Young. I think he's related to her. Did we go into that?
And Michelle Yakadapalopoulos Nickel, right? Whatever her name is, Michelle Yakatopoulos Nickel, married to Greg Nickel, is the assistant coroner.
It's really incestuous there.
You gotta love Pennsylvania. You gotta love it. So just the fact that, we've got the coroner, we got the information. The coroner was talking to Clay Higgins and said, yeah, there's no evidence. Now, the other thing is Clay Higgins said, I saw your autopsy report and I thought it was thorough. Well, we haven't seen that. We've only seen the summary. And the autopsy summary said it was, death from a gunshot wound to the head. And it's 1 page.
Yeah, it's like the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, it's useless. But it sounds like Clay Higgins saw the actual autopsy. We'd love to see that. So, hint, hint, freedom of Commonwealth knowledge to the what was it? The freedom of knowledge.
Right to know.
Commonwealth. Right to know in the Commonwealth. So maybe the right to know in the Commonwealth will entitle us to see the autopsy, or maybe it's already out there. We'll have to
I
find
gotta
out.
look into that.
All right. Let's go to the next slide.
Did we look at this previously with the wife of Gian Vito? We'll look at that another time.
No, we'll have to do that later. And most people don't know who Gian Vito is. Most people don't know who.
That's the thing. They were talking about a lot of crooks. I got a problem with what they're doing there.
Well, dude, it's like Stephen Paddock and Mary Lou Danley.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you
We're
know,
never going to get to the facts.
they want you talking about the red herrings. Right? I don't want you
Right.
talking about this stuff. So I thought that the congresswoman who asked the question, when Eli Crane answered, I thought she was going to have a coronary. I was waiting for the same cart to fall over. This is the crashing cart.
No, they rehearsed that.
All right. Well, let's take a look at this. So this is sort of the issue. So when Eli Crane talks about the videos and the ballistics and it doesn't line up, this is the net. The net is that the shooter on the roof, if he's taking the first shot and that first shot hits the president's ear, it can't hit the railing where we see the railing getting hit. For A, that's not where it would go. And B, there's somebody standing there. And that guy, it would go through his torso. That's the lucky guy. So go to the next slide. He's standing in the corner. So in order for the round that was fired from AGR to hit the railing, that's not the trajectory, but if it was, it would still need to go through this guy. And this guy does not get shot in the abdomen.
It looks like he got shot in the elbow. Didn't you have some good photo of looked like a fresh wound on his elbow?
It clearly his elbow is raw, right? So whether
Something
that's
happened to it,
psoriasis,
right.
or it could be psoriasis. I mean, the guy
Or
could
he
have
was
psoriasis.
working in the shop the day before. I agree with you. It's
Yeah,
unclear
yeah,
what that
or
injury
crawling
was from.
around under. Yeah,
Could be
so
anything. Yeah.
But yes, his elbows looked raw, but it, again, could be psoriasis.
Who knows what this guy gets up to?
But where he's standing and the yellow circle indicates that's where the bullet would have to go through his abdomen to hit that back railing.
That'll ruin your day.
And it didn't happen. So because it didn't happen, that means that the round that's hitting the railing is traversing behind this guy.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And so that takes us to the diagram. And this has kind of been the working diagram since the very beginning when we started with this on the next slide. And what it shows is that if the round is traversing the back row of the bleachers and we follow that round back up from whence it came, so to speak, just draw a straight line, and the straight line pointed at the counter snipers, the Hercules guys on the rooftop closest to the kid on the roof of the building.
Where was it that it came out the conversation with these guys where now these snipers have confirmed that they were getting shot at, right? Was that in this hearing or some other thing that got released?
It appears that they, it's the last slide in the deck. So let's go to the last two slides. So the last two slides, this is where it came from.
Yeah, oh, right, the Josh Hawley report, right.
All right, so go back up one to show everybody kind of the source.
Right.
So it's the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Senate Committee.
Yeah.
This is the Senate, not the Congress. Examination of U.S. Secret Service planning and security failures, blah, blah, blah.
Right, but this is where they have the 1-800 number that they had to call for the drone.
Yeah.
1-800, we got drones.
Yeah, we'll talk about that with the patrons too. All right, but let's go to the next slide. So the next slide, I want you to read this to the audience in your voice because this is the Hercules counter sniper that was on the rooftop closest to the kid on the roof. These are the guys that are trying to look through the tree. Okay, they're trying to look through the tree.
Oh, see, it's the other guy that I was calling, not these. I think these guys were not in on it. The guys getting shot at were not in on it.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to read this. So these are the guys closest to the kid on the roof, and I want you to read this and okay, it's your voice. I want you to hear this. This is wild.
One of the counter snipers on the Hercules 2 team told the committee that after hearing shots fired, he thought that his partner was hit due to the proximity of these whip-like cracks. The U.S. Secret Service counter sniper added that after the shooting, he told the committee that he asked my partner how close he thought the rounds were to our left. He looked at me and he said, I heard them on my right. And there were approximately 6 feet between him and I. So I didn't understand really what that meant, though, when I read that, because I'm very confused by these whole crack thump. How do you tell where it's coming from? Oh, wait, we got more here. And then he says, when we were on the rooftop at the main site. Yeah.
Okay, so let me explain what this means. So what he's saying is, and we'll go back to the top. He says, so first he thought his partner was hit. All right. He said, how close do you think it was? And he's looking at his partner. Okay. So he's looking at his partner on his left. So this is the guy who is crouched down. This is the guy who went in the fetal position. Okay. This is the guy that was really hiding. And he says to the other guy, how far to the left do you think it was? And that guy said, it was to my right.
I mean, that's the thing. They're obviously confused, right? Why does one...
It means it passed between them.
Huh.
And they're saying they were 6 feet apart.
Wow. So they're shooting at them, basically, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying since day one.
Yeah.
They
So there you go.
target.
That's confirmation. Wow.
So what he said is, he said, how far do you think it was to the left? And he looks at me and he says, it was on my right. And they're looking at each other and like, but we were only 6 feet apart.
So they're realizing that they're being shot at.
This was their Samuel Jackson, John Travolta,
Right.
Pulp
It's like a
Fiction
funny
moment.
scene, right?
Yeah, this is their. It's like, dude, that round passed between us.
That's wild.
Yeah. Now let's go back up to my diagram, and we'll have to go to the patron only portion. Go up to my cartoony diagram, the cartoony one, all the way up. There, yep. Look where the line goes. Look where my
Oh,
red
yeah.
line went.
Wow. Oh, come on. That's accurate as hell, man. Wow.
All
Whoa.
right. So back at the beginning, I just drew
Yeah, I
the
mean, this was
line
like day
and
one that
said,
you had this. That's what I'm saying. You had prima facie evidence of a gunshot coming from not the roof. And when I say prima facie evidence, what I'm talking about is on its face, this evidence is just, there's nothing that refutes this. And until someone can, this stands. Nobody can say this didn't happen.
And when I first put this together, I was invited on Brett
Because you
Weinstein.
did it based on
Hardcore.
this.
Yes. And I shared it with Brett, and I said, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you where the line goes because it goes to a tree and there's nothing
I don't
there.
know why that bothered you. That made sense
Because
to me.
it's, to you and Clay Martin both.
Because I'm not encumbered by whatever Kamala Harris says. I don't have any preconceived notions about how a shot needs to be taken, so I just figured somebody's in the tree shooting.
To me, it seemed a bit wild, but when I talked with Clay Martin, and he was like, "No, dude, like that's standard procedure. Like that's not crazy." And you said the same thing. So I was like, "Okay." I was trying to be
Because I
conservative.
think I had
thought it was
seen
nuts.
it in Louisiana. Like we were going to Bass Pro and stuff. I wanted to buy a gun when I was there, but it was a whole problem with like living in New York and all that. But they had that stuff. I had definitely seen that, people hunting from in the trees.
So for me, it was a little wild and uncomfortable. Seemed a bit kind of far-fetched, but I had not yet heard Vanessa. You had Vanessa on the show as a guest. Vanessa, during her broadcast, says the snipers are turning towards the trees. It seems like that's where the gunfire's coming from. Whoa, there's your corroboration of the ballistic evidence. So when you have somebody like Vanessa, who's a trained observer, she's an adult trained observer. She's been doing this, this is her career. And when she says it appears this is where the gunfire is coming from and points out that the snipers are turning towards the trees, that corroborate, and I didn't know that when I drew all this stuff. I didn't know that.
It's amazing.
I didn't see the footage of these guys turning towards the trees.
Well, listen, John, we got to put a pin in it here because we're out of time.
A lot to share with the patrons. Let's just tell everybody we've got the Clay Higgins, we've got Eli Crane basically telling Congress, you guys need to see John Cullen's work. And
He calls you John Cullen. I was like, what is he consulting with
Everybody
Shepard?
does that. Everybody
like
can't
that.
pronounce Cullen. It's kind of
What the
weird.
hell is up with that? They know what a colon is.
A lot of people do this as Shepard, but it's the same thing. John Cullen.
Shepard, I get it.
Cullen. Simple. But we've got the Dan Bongino thing. We've got the Lucky Man thing. We're going to listen to Eli Crane. We're going to listen to Clay Higgins. We've got a lot to talk about with the patrons. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
That's right. Thanks for watching, everybody.